Good morning, everybody. We are meeting in a global virtual environment today. So in the context of the pandemic, welcome to everybody. I think the most significant reason for holding the conference today is, of course, we have learnt that those individuals with diabetes and obesity have suffered disproportionately from COVID-19. Added to that, there, of course, has been the impact for patients who are from a black and minority ethnic group. I think first and foremost, Professor Kamlesh Kunti and Professor Wasim Hanif, who really led the early charge in the UK in terms of recognizing the rationale behind why diabetes and COVID-19 are interrelated and guiding health systems.
We talk about HbA1c, blood sugars, while for the person concerned, we might be looking at weight, we might be looking at hypoglycemia, well-being, maybe a bigger thing, and engagement from individuals, always a big issue. There is also now a website where you will find all of these documents in one place. So you've got the Indian document, there's a type 2 diabetes document also now finished for people in India. And finally, we are dealing with a long-term condition, and we must be aware that just by giving a drug or an insulin or technology, we're not going to solve people's lives. So I think that's what this talk is about.
So actually, asking the deep question about how will people live better and more confident lives with diabetes, free from discrimination during a pandemic, you get some really interesting answers about what it tells us that we as a charity have to do to meet that. So, and we are looking for candidates that can bring that BAME experience and background into our work. So please do pick that opportunity up and think whether it might be for you. And as I say later, we're taking thousands of calls each week, literally tens of thousands of calls during the entirety of this period of time. So we are revising our approach to community champions in the future. And again, I dwell on this because I know there'll be a number of people in the audience that have connected with our community champions program in the past. We are much more fundamentally taking out our work in community champions and embedding that in our regions. We have offices around the regions right across the United Kingdom.
Of course, we can do something to either prevent type 2 diabetes or to put it back into remission, which gave us some very clear and relevant goals in the context of the COVID pandemic. And for those that already have diabetes, we had clear modifiable risk factors indicated from the data sets of hyperglycemia and body mass index. Firstly, we know there's a higher risk of onset of type 2 diabetes. Secondly, we know that onset is likely to be at a younger age. But thirdly, we now know also that South Asian, black ethnicity predicts worse outcomes with COVID.
The cheapest food is sometimes the most unhealthy food, so lots of households maybe only be able to afford only that, with jobs under crisis.
I've highlighted the actions that we've taken to try and optimize, if you like, risk factors as best we can to minimize risk of people developing type 2 diabetes.
The general well-being, be it mental health issues, be it the weight gain, be it the lack of exercise, be it not being able to access good quality food because of the economic deprivation that is the pandemic is causing. All these socio-economic determinants point to the fact that we might be seeing the consequences of the pandemic for a very long time.
Looking at case fatality rates in the setting of COVID-19, this happened around, I think it came out in the end of January, and this was when we first got clear data, I know Jonathan alluded to this, about COVID-19 and associated risk factors in terms of mortality. What we didn't know was specifically about the type of diabetes and a bit more about, was it based on HbA1c levels, was it based on glycemia? We didn't know any more specifics except these people had diabetes and there was a higher risk. But the next stage, really, the next thing I want to talk about was about technology, and specifically the Freestyle Libre device, which is flash glucose monitoring. This is termed as something of a revolution when it came out in the form of no more finger prick testing, just need to scan and you get an idea of looking at blood sugar readings and you can monitor your diabetes. We've had a number of different cardiovascular outcome trials with SGLT2 inhibitors, and each one has issued some degree of positivity, something that we found: cardiovascular outcomes, cardiovascular death, 3-point MACE, hospitalization for heart failure, renal outcomes. We've seen a lot of benefit from these medications.
When it comes to GLP-1 receptor agonists, there is also the added challenge, which is that they are not a homogeneous group. All these drugs are different. So we need to personalize treatment approaches. So give the right drug to the right patient, because the patient features and the clinical circumstances and other circumstances also contribute to which drug to choose. This audience will be familiar that GLP-1 results have multi-system impact. It works in the pancreas by resulting in increased insulin secretion and reduction in glucagon secretion. Both of them occur in a glucose-dependent manner. It works on the brain by increasing satiety, and that can result in weight loss. It works on the cardiovascular system by lowering the blood pressure and increasing the heart rate, and some GLP-1 receptor agonists have favorable cardiovascular outcome data, and it also reduces hepatic glucose output in the liver.
So the other things that we can do is culturally adapting our services and also our interventions. And as just one example, we know that for psychological interventions, where they're not culturally appropriate, people from different ethnic groups, their outcomes are less good. And that is in relation to some of the frameworks that people use to think about illness and to think about how to get well and stay well. And then also making sure that staff have an understanding of this cultural competency, and also that they can put this into action so they have a good capability.
Recent innovation, both diagnostically and therapeutically, which I think will be of particular interest to you. So what I wanted to do first of all was really just touch on what I think the burden of NAFLD, NASH and fibrosis is in patients with type 2 diabetes, then talk a little bit about new ways in which we can identify these patients, in particular those with advanced fibrosis, and then talk a little bit about the therapeutic landscape.
Can you please comment on reversing NAFLD by diet, particularly around cutting down carbohydrates, processed food, weight loss, and increasing muscle mass, which is a question I was interested in as well.
Yeah, no, so there's no doubt that I think increasing muscle mass is important. I think the question as to what type of diet should you use, I'm sanguine on that. I think at the end of the day, it's about a healthy, balanced diet. And I think exercise is important. Exercise has been shown to clear liver fat. I think the greatest value of exercise is I think it reinforces dietary changes because it makes people feel better about themselves, and I think then finesses how they respond to dietary cues.
So the national UK guidance is 50% of energy as carbs and under 35 as fat, and the rest is protein. Here's a UK study showing about 57% of our energy consumption from carbs, and another one in South Asia with the Pure study in the South Asian part of it showing a staggering average 65% of our energy coming from carbs. So clearly for South Asians, for any group or for any group with high carb intakes, there are some clear winners, low-hanging fruit. Avoid added sugars, avoid sugar-sweetened drinks, reduce refined carbs and highly processed foods, do eat the good carbs, as in fruit and veg and whole grain things. Easier said than done, but here is a handy tip for all of us. I use this and my family uses this all the time. For those things with labels, if the ratio of total carb to fiber is less than 5:1, it's a great choice, but there are very few options on the market like that. Less than 10:1 is good. Go for that.
It is around a third overall of patients with type 2 diabetes have some degree of chronic kidney disease, that's diabetic kidney disease. And you can see here, in terms of causes of CKD, diabetes right at the top, and then hypertension, dyslipidemia, and then we've got other renal causes, recurrent renal infections, nephritis and so on, polycystic kidney disease, obstructive neuropathies, and certain drug therapies such as non-steroidal anti-inflammatories and lithium, for example. And you can see the risk factors here, clearly cardiovascular disease, smoking, obesity, older age, and importantly for this meeting, certain ethnicities such as Asian origin. This is an important risk factor for CKD. So in terms of our patients with type 2 diabetes, if they're of Asian origin, we need to be particularly cognizant of this outcome, this long-term outcome of chronic kidney disease. And I think we have enough data now to really confirm that this class effect of renal benefits, in addition to the hospitalized heart failure, these remarkably consistent outcomes across the class.
The first thing that was obvious was that if you had type 2 diabetes, your risk of dying from COVID was increased twofold, although the absolute risk was small. If you had type 1 diabetes, it was increased by 3.5-fold. But what was very obvious was the age. So if you were above 80, your risk of dying was nearly 9 times higher. And when it came to the South Asian patients, or the Asian patients as they describe it, there was a 40% more risk of you being hospitalized when compared to the white patients. This shows a very similar linkage of nearly 40% increase, although there is difference among the South Asians, the highest being that for the Bangladeshi community and the lowest being for the people of Indian heritage. And that is quite surprising, and that will make us wonder what are the reasons. And I'm just going to hypothesize on them. None of them have got very strong evidence. When you are deciding to give vaccine, the important thing to consider, which are the populations that are likely to die. And if there is a certain amount of risk associated with this population, they should be vaccinated first, and we should not hold back in asking that question for political reasons or emotive reasons. I think that is what we should do.
This is our 21st South Asian Health Foundation Lifetime Achievement Award, and it gives us great pleasure today to announce the recipient for this year, who is Professor Sonia Anand, who is Professor of Medicine and Epidemiology at McMaster University in Canada.
So thank you very much.
Oh, great.
That's
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. It's a distinct pleasure and an honor to be nominated and given this award. It is an incredible honor. I would like to share with you the past 20 years of the work that we've done in Canada, and this work started in Canada has also had global reach, and a picture tells 1,000 words. This demonstrating that for the same BMI, two colleagues of different ethnicity and physical activity have very different body fats, with the South Asians having the thin fat phenotype, relatively lower body mass index, and significantly more adiposity. South Asians have excess adiposity, type 2 diabetes, and early cardiovascular disease. These risk factor trajectories are influenced by early life exposures, even the exposures of the pregnant mother, the in utero exposures, and then life thereafter. The low carbohydrate diet and high physical activity are effective ways to prevent adiposity accumulation, and our ancient Hindu texts actually promote a lot of the things that we are promoting when we talk about healthy active living as a means to prevent diabetes in South Asians.
So thank you very much, and we are absolutely delighted that you have accepted this award. My job is also to close the conference, so let me take this opportunity first of all to thank all the speakers and chairs. They have been absolutely brilliant for having to taking their time and to have made the presentations, and most importantly to stick to the time. I also want to thank the lovely delegates. You know, I think we had more than nearly 600 delegates registered. And I really want to thank is Rajvinder Gill, who is the general manager for the SAHF. She is the woman behind the scene. These are the people who provided us the technical support and managed to run this conference almost smoothly, because this was the first virtual conference. Anand Mishra, who heads the ESCME based in Glasgow, along with his Indian counterparts Amit Arora, Bimalendu Kunar, and Venkatesh Sharma. So we could see their names. So a big thank you to all, and we really appreciate it. Whenever we do a conference of SAHF, it is never possible to do it without our wonderful industry sponsors, and we are really grateful for them to have made it possible in this virtual world.